Hello, everyone. My name is Glenn Morano. This is the very first episode of Main Street Insights podcast, where I highlight small businesses and local businesses in my area. I bring on the owners, do a quick interview, get the insights, the passion, the story behind it, how they started, the challenges they face, and then we try to learn from each other with this podcast. And I want to highlight these small and medium-sized businesses. I want to show their love for the business, their love for their customers, and exactly how they're sort of, producing and dealing with the current climate that we have at the moment, whether it's good or bad. And I really hope you enjoy the show today. Today's show, I have Brian Williams from Northshire Consulting Group. Now, Brian offers financial planning for small to medium-sized businesses. So me and him, I've known him for a while. We've talked, we bounce ideas off of each other. It's just who we are. He contacts me, I contact him. We have a great relationship. And then when you listen to him through the interview process here, you're going to see that he has that love and passion to help smaller businesses out. He's not out for the big monetary gain. Although a lot of us have this theory that as long as we bring value and we help people reach the goals that they're trying to reach, the money is kind of the byproduct. And that's what it is that we want to do. And that's the kind of community that I want to be a part of. And I believe that Brian wants to be a part of too. So without further ado, here is Brian Williams from Northshire Consulting. Welcome to Main Street Insights, Brian. Thank you so much for jumping in. I really do appreciate you taking time out today.
Yeah, sure. I'm really excited about this. It's always good to, I've been on the other side asking a lot of questions of people over the years, so it's good to be on this side. Yeah,
and I appreciate, like I said, it's just awesome. This is the first Main Street podcast we're doing. I'm not sure if it's going to be the first one published, but this is the first one, so I'm a little slightly nervous about it. But tell me, what is Northshire Consulting and what is it you do?
Yeah, so we're an independent investment advisory firm. That's like the super nerdy thing, I guess, the industry of what we're supposed to say. We are an individual wealth management and financial planning firm for small businesses. So what that means is we work with businesses from 1 employee to probably up around 50 employees. And that is to help them set up their 401k and then use that to be the foundation for a workplace financial planning and wellness program for their employees. And then on the individual side, same sort of thing, where we work with individuals to help them plan for retirement or whatever other financial goals they might have. So that could be from, people at the early start of their career. They're trying to save for a house or maybe putting some money away for their kids. They're trying to get their retirement stuff together and then, ultimately get them over the finish line in retirement and through.
Perfect. So the thing that I remember, and I read this in the news article, that a lot of people may not know that there is a new law. We are in Connecticut, by the way, and there's a new law in Connecticut. I think that even the smallest of employers now have to offer this kind of 401k service. Is that right?
Yeah, that is true. A number of states have had these mandated retirement plans. So I'm a small business. I know nobody likes to have a mandate. I say it all the time, whether you're like my 5-year-old doesn't even like to be told what to do. So as a business owner, we don't like to be told what to do. But in this instance, I usually tell business owners, like, listen, I know it's another thing on your plate, but this will actually help you in the long term. To have a retirement plan for your employees. It's not very expensive, may not even cost the business anything at all. And it does help your employees. It helps you recruit and retain. As a small business, this is a one benefit you can add that levels the playing field with you and, a mega employer. So it is ultimately a good thing. And Connecticut does have that mandate. What they did is they started it with the larger size businesses and they're working their way down. So right now, if you have 5 or more employees, you do have to offer a retirement plan for your staff.
Oh, understood. And just like you said, it's going to help retain employees, I'm thinking too, right?
I think so. I mean, our industry says it all the time, and I kind of, take that with a grain of salt. It's a little bit more of a sales pitch. I mean, nobody's ever going to stay in a job that they hate because the 401k is really good. I mean, I'm not that naive, but I do know that, listen, if you're a small business and you're trying to keep employees and they keep leaving to work for, a bigger company because the benefits are better. And, this is one chance where you can say, hey, you know what, we can offer that. We can. Right. So it's a good opportunity for small businesses for sure.
So I want to start with the beginning of your business, how you
Mhm.
got into it. So can you kind of share me a story? What inspired you to get into this kind of business?
Yeah. Well, so I guess it would depend on how far back you want to go. But, for me, when I came out of college way back then, it was, I kind of had an interest in the profession. And I said, well, let me get started in the profession. And even if I don't like it as a career, it would be good for me to just kind of know this stuff anyway. You're 22, 23 years old. So why not? And then I got into it. And the way the industry was at the time, it was, in a lot of ways it still kind of is, but it was very, very salesy and it was very product oriented and it wasn't really quite my speed. And then as the industry kind of involved, I went, early on to go from this job to this job, and I eventually found this structure called, it's an RIA, which is a registered investment advisory firm. So that means you are less of a salesperson with products and it's more of a service oriented business. So that's what I liked. And then I kind of got into the 401k world because I realized that was the best way to help people without a lot of money, to put it bluntly. Is our industry is one that, you think of multimillionaires and, helping people manage tons of money. But there are a lot of folks like myself who, I think my average account size balance is maybe like $40,000 or something because you have,
Hmm. Hmm.
so many small people. So, and from an economic standpoint, from a business standpoint, the only really way you can make that work is to like a one-to-many platform, as you kind of know from your world, doing webinars and things like that. If I have
Right.
to meet with one person for an hour and it's just that one person, that's very labor intensive. But if I can do programs out at the workplace where I'm having the same conversation with a group of 30 or 40 people, then that starts to add value to them. And it's a way for me to kind of leverage my ability to get out there. So I do really like the workplace retirement space. And then, in a similar model, like the subscription model. So I do a lot of webinars and stuff where, again, you're speaking to, maybe 10 people who are in their 20s trying to save for a house and have children or whatever. And they're in a similar spot, but now I can kind of leverage my time to do that. So for me, the subscription model and then the workplace retirement account is what got me into this. And that's kind of what keeps me going. So, the idea of, advisors and brokers chasing multimillionaires and stuff, that's the kind of stuff that exhausts me. It's just working with regular people. And that's where I think I can add the most value.
And and it's funny the way you're saying that, I can tell that the passion and the value and service, because it's just this is a lot like these smaller groups, smaller savers, etc. They're sort of being left behind by exactly what you said, by these guys who are just chasing giant single persons with millions of dollars. And then the rest of us are kind of like, and that's me, I include myself, the rest of us are kind of like, oh no, what do we do?
Mhm.
And this is a valuable service, I think, that you offer. Were some of the biggest challenges you faced in the early days?
Well, so I've been in business on my own now for about 5 years, and so the biggest challenge, probably everybody you have on is going to say the same thing as, going through the COVID period was a challenge, especially working with small businesses, but that's kind of the easy one. I think for me, the biggest challenge is always just going to be getting in front of the right people and making it a priority. So,
Yeah.
if you're the 10-person bakery or the restaurant in town with a staff of 25, the last thing on your agenda is putting together a 401k for your employees. Like,
Yeah.
at least the mandate kind of helps bring it to the top of the pile, but like you're running around with your hair on fire most of the time. So even just getting somebody to sit down for 30 minutes and be like, dude, you got to get this done. Like, you have to do this,
Yeah.
is a challenge. So, we talk a lot about what's competition and what's your, SWOT analysis and what's your, all that kind of stuff. If you're a McDonald's and you're across the street from Burger King, yes, that's your competition. But you're also, your competition is people eating at home or people eating healthy or all that kind of stuff. So, there is a balance there of what really is your competition. For me, the competition is definitely just inertia and getting people to go in motion. I
To
don't
think
feel like
about
I
it.
have,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't have like a lot of, there's not a lot of people trying to do 401k plans for 10-person businesses, just because the model doesn't make sense for mostly the chains and the franchises and those type of financial services firms. They're just not going to do it. So it's not like there's competition for me versus another advisor across the street. It's just competition is time. It's business owners' time and making it a priority. So that's always going to be the challenge. And even quite frankly, once you make that implementation, it's like, hey, we got to do some meetings for your employees. Hey, we've got to, clear up
more
this
time out
issue.
of their day. They're thinking like, oh, I could be doing something a lot better than this, and it's not. Right. Yeah, so, and their thought process, but not realizing how important it is to actually offer this.
Yeah, right. So that's my biggest challenge, is just making it a priority and trying to, it's not like a closing ratio thing. It's not like where I have 20 appointments and then one person decides they're going to do a 401k. Usually once I have time to get in front of people and say, listen, you got to do this anyway. I'm your guide. Nobody else is going to help you. Let's get this done. Then usually it happens, but it's just a matter of getting in the door.
Now, looking back, what was one of the things you wish you knew before you started your business?
That's a good question. I think it's, I think it's trying to realize that not everybody is going to maybe help you in the same way that you're willing to help them. I think, you got a lot of people who are skeptical, especially in the financial services industry. They're always assuming that, you're kind of out to get them or whatever. Like I have a few accounts that honestly, they're like really tiny accounts, and they're young people, and they just needed a place to kind of, roll money over and, maybe doing some things for them. And so I was helping this young guy out one time, and he goes, he just kind of said something in passing. He's like, oh, well, I'm going to put more money in, so at least you'll make a little more money off my account or something. And I just kind of started laughing. He's like, what's so funny? I'm like, dude, I don't bill you anything. I don't charge you. I'm just trying to help you out. You're 20 years old and trying to get you going here.
Right.
He's like, really? You don't make any like money? Like there's no hidden, like it's no somewhere behind the scenes. I'm like, no, I don't do business. That's not what I do. If you don't see a bill from me, then I'm not getting paid. So I think that I didn't realize how skeptical people were, that you might actually be just trying to help them.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that I learned. I think the other thing is, I think time management that's an easy one. That's always a big thing, and trying to figure out, you've got your short-term projects, you've got your long-term projects, and what's the best way to balance those. So I've tried to come up with a few little tricks and tips here and there, how to better manage my day and be more focused. Because that's always a big issue for me, is just being focused. There's a million things I want to do and a million things I want to get done. So it's like, all right, how do I sit down and just get this part done? So
yeah, I find the same exact issue that I run into, that same exact issue. Just jumping ahead here now. So how has your business evolved since then? Since now that you have these lessons learned, you understand, you're getting your stride a little bit. How's it evolved since it started?
I think I think it goes back to those original two things. I think it's better time management. I think it's figuring out better ways to communicate with clients, and just really, kind of asking them the questions sometimes. Like, I'm in a lot of advisor forums, and they'll say things like, hey, how frequently should I email my clients, or should I check with them quarterly, or how often should I meet with them? And, those are the discussions we kind of have early in our career and our headspace and all that. And now I realize, just ask them, hey, client, I'm, Joe client, what's going on? Hey, how often should I call you? What's a good cadence? How often do you want to meet? When do you want to meet? Is it once a year? Is it twice a year? Tell me. So I think it's just being a little bit more direct, like, hey, what are we doing here? What are you looking to get from the relationship? Let's make sure the service model is what you want. Let's make sure the fee is appropriate for what you want. And let's make sure, because I never want anybody to say, well, we're really, being overcharged by this guy. That's probably never going to happen. But, that their service and their expectations aren't what I'm doing. So I think that's, just being more direct about the communication and that type of thing.
That's a great piece of advice because I think that a lot of us do struggle with that kind of
Mhm.
thing, being direct and saying and being afraid to ask a question like that because you're always worried, like, what's the outcome if I do ask a question like that? Um, what does a typical day look like for you now?
Well, it's changed quite a bit, and I think this has been for the good thing. And I know you've got kids too, so
I do,
you
yeah.
know when I started my business, I did it when my son was just right after he was born, because I figured it's like, all right, now or never. There's never a perfect time to start a business, as you know. There's always a reason not to do it. But the idea was, all right, let me get this thing up and running. So by the time he starts to get better with, as he gets busy with, after school activities and stuff, hopefully we'll be kind of running a little bit. And as I say that, I'm preparing tonight to coach my first Little League baseball game. So
Hey, let's go.
I'm just filling in for the main coach because he's away. But so that'll be kind of fun. But that was always kind of the idea. So, but what happened? So my wife's a teacher. She teaches Cheshire, so one town over, and she's great. She gets up early. She goes in early. She's one of at the high school, so she's one of the first teachers there. So she always left the house at 6:30 and then dropped Luke off at daycare. And so I was, working from home, house empty at 6:30 in the morning. So I was like, okay, let's go. And then, so now he's in kindergarten. His bus doesn't come till like, a little after 8:30. I'm walking him down to the bus stop. By the time I, get back and I'm ready to go, it's like 9 o'clock. So, and when September came around, that was a big adjustment for me because it was like, oh my God, I'm sitting down at 9 o'clock. And for me, that feels like the day's like half
It's
over by
over.
then.
Yeah, same with me. I know what you mean.
Your inbox is full. You maybe got a couple calls already. You're like, kind of feel like you're already behind. So it's taken me, pretty much right up till now to kind of get used to that schedule of just starting a little bit later. So that's been a big adjustment. So my typical day is, getting up with them and having breakfast, and then Luke, he still wakes up at the same time, so he's eating breakfast, the three of us around 6 o'clock, and then my wife still leaves at 6:30. So from 6:30 to 8:30, it's daddy son time, which is pretty awesome.
It is.
He does a lot of time on the phone with his grandmothers in the morning, so I thank them for that. So that's good. And so he'll do like word searches with them, and like Where's Waldo books. So what they do is they'll buy two of the same book.
Mm.
And so I'll go on Amazon, I'll buy a couple word searches, and I'll send a bunch to my mother and then send the same ones to us so they can kind of do them together over the phone or through, video chat or something. So that does kind of help me a little bit. So I can't get into like full work mode because he's still around, but if I have to return a few emails and do that, so that kind of takes me to 8:30. And then if I can come back to, around 9 o'clock and get through that first initial wave of separating all the spam emails from regular emails and see what I want to read, check in a little bit what the market's doing, see if I can get a little quick workout in or whatever in the morning. And then it's, every day is a little bit different. So I still prefer to go out and do meetings when I can. So, a week from now, I'm going to be in Danbury and I'm going to be there all day. It's a manufacturing firm with about 40 employees.
Nice.
A lot of Spanish.
Congratulations.
Yeah, there's a lot of Spanish language people there. So I'm bringing a translator. So we're going to work together on some stuff. We're going to split up and see some people. And so I'd done group meetings about a month ago, and now I'm coming back and doing one-on-one. So the idea is get there early, have 15-minute slots, and we'll just be working through everybody all day long. And that's going to be awesome. So really looking forward to that. So that'll be next Monday. So I'll be out of the office all day, whereas today I'm home most of the day. So really is different.
This kind of this kind of leads me to my next question though, because can you describe a recent project or initiative that you're particularly proud of? And it sounds like that might be it.
Yeah, I think that's probably it. That's a good client. The situation they're in before was okay. It was, suboptimal. They knew it. They wish they had made a change earlier. They were in a retirement plan that really wasn't right for those employees, and they weren't getting a lot of Spanish language assistance. So, so we were able to set them up with a platform that had a lot of Spanish language materials, website, phone service, and actually get somebody to come out to help me with that is really good. So that's a really good project. And then just like this, I mean, I was doing a lot more content, early on and during the pandemic stuff. I don't have as much now, but later today, I'm going to post on LinkedIn. I did a podcast with the head of research for the Employee Benefits Research Institute, EBRI. So I still really like to do that stuff when I can get a really good guest on there and kind of nerd out a little bit, which we did for about an hour or so. So that type of content is really good for me because I realize, I'm having these conversations with so many professionals and so many people on LinkedIn and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, why don't we just record this and get this out there,
And then
just
be beneficial for others, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if two people listen to it, well, that's two more people than would have heard it otherwise. So, if we're going to have this conversation anyway, let's do a live.
I agree. I agree. It's weird. It's weird because we came up. I feel like we almost had the same epiphany together where we came up with the same kind of like, hey, let's start talking here. Let's start conversating. Let's get other people. Let's get, bigger groups talking about this kind of stuff because it's just going to be beneficial, I think, to everybody.
Yeah, I think so. And then, from an industry standpoint, I mean, before we went live here, we are just talking about compliance issues and the difference between, some of the larger chains or franchises or whatever versus, being local and independent. So I'm my own chief compliance officer. So I don't have anybody, looking over obviously regulators and that kind of stuff too. But most of those larger organizations, they can't really post any social media. They certainly can't do podcasts or video, YouTube. They can't do any of that kind of stuff. So I knew right away when I went, fully independent, that was going to be an avenue that I could leverage that from a standpoint of just getting message out there. So I can comment on LinkedIn and Facebook, which seems crazy that other organizations can't do that, but
yeah.
I can do that. So from a content creation standpoint, and you always want to do more. There's always a million different things you can do. And once you start editing, you're like, oh man, I could spend, a week editing this and make it perfect,
Yeah,
letting
you were
be the enemy of good. But
I'm sorry, you were mentioning our chat earlier and about the compliance portion of it. And you're like, that was surprising to me. I was very surprised. And you gave me like in 2 minutes, a massive education on how regulated your industry actually is.
Yeah.
Speaking of so I want to talk about the future. What goals do you have for your business right now for the next 5 years?
Yeah. So for 5 years, I like a trajectory. I like the path that I'm on. I do still have capacity to add some clients. I think for me, it's just trying to just continue to look for ways to add value, become a better communicator, become a better facilitator of these conversations and to get more people involved. So I know from doing this a long time, going out and meeting with businesses, I can come into a group of 40 people and I can say, hey, listen, I'm here to help you with your 401k, but feel free to reach out to me if you're, trying to save for a home or have budgeting or cash flow, or if you have any questions, just reach out to me. And I know that nobody's going to do that. They just met me. They're just, whatever. So I know that takes time. Even some of the relationships that I've had with businesses for 10 years, some of the employees are just now reaching out to me to the first time, like, oh yeah, we have a guy that comes in and, cause they know I'm not trying to sell a product. Like I don't sell insurances or mortgages or whatever. So, but if they have a question, I can point them to another professional or answer the question, myself and give them an honest answer where I'm not just kind of pushing a product, and that's a huge resource, not just for the employees, but for the employer to know that their employees can reach out to somebody at any point with any sort of financial question and get a legitimate answer that's not a sales pitch. That's a really big deal. So I think it's to deepen those relationships over the next 5 years, establish some new ones, of course, but also continue to deepen those relationships with the employees at the existing companies I already have.
Now, thinking about staying on the topic of future, and I think a lot of people are going to be very interested in this answer that you're going to have for this question here.
No, I better have a good answer. Then
I think you are, because I've known you for quite a while now, and I know and I trust in that your knowledge is there. what are the biggest challenges that you foresee for investors and 401ks and retirements into the future?
Well, I think it's going to be we live in the information age, but we also live in the misinformation age. And there is just a ton of really good advice out there, and there's a ton of really bad advice out there. And trying to figure out the difference between good and bad advice is really difficult, because you can go, on Instagram Reels or YouTube or TikTok and see really well done professional videos from people who are good communicators, who look like they know what they're talking about. And everything they talk about is 100% completely wrong. And they're not
Yes.
licensed, and they don't know what they're doing, but it looks good. So I think that's a challenge, is to just kind of turn out the noise from the misinformation that's out there. And there's just so many pitfalls, so many landmines, so many holes people can step into on the way to kind of do financial services. If you're doing it right, if you're a good saver, if you're a good investor, it's pretty boring. It's not that, just putting a little bit every week, keeping going into the same fund. You're not an active trader. You're not making crazy, bets on this and that. I mean, it is pretty boring. So to stick to that, it's a lot like diet or exercise or whatever. There's no quick way to do it. There's no shortcut. You just have to kind of keep putting in the effort, day in, day out, week after week. So I think that's the biggest challenge for investors, is to just kind of tune out that noise and stick with the program, trust the process, and be boring. Being great is being boring sometimes,
Yeah.
right?
Moving on to balancing personal life and business life, you did touch on it a little bit earlier. How do you manage the demands of your business and your personal life with your family?
Well, I think my timing was pretty lucky, and having the family support, I think, was critical early on for me to get going, working a lot of hours. I still do work, a lot of hours, but I'm able to kind of piece it together, and I've figured out now what mentally, or like, in my head, when I get an extra 20 minutes, when I get an extra 10 minutes, or even an extra 5 minutes, okay, what can I do quickly that, yesterday we're all working outside and doing stuff. It was a really nice day here. And then my wife says, all right, I'm running to the grocery store. I'm taking Luke with me to get some groceries. Now it's like, all right, I got a little 20, 30 minute window here. How can I maybe do something for work here and take a break? So it's figuring out what those little tasks are and knowing how much time that they take, so I can kind of slot them in when I get those opportunities. Having that little pocket sometimes now, once the kids go to bed, and you've got that little window. My wife does some work, after hours too. So it's like, all right, we're going to do this little half-hour sprint from 8 to 8:30, and then we're going to go watch, something on TV or do something. So
And just get that valuable time in, that family time.
yeah. So for me, early on, it was, a lot of hours, and a lot of, you think it's going to be that big grind, but a lot of times it's the shorter hours, the quicker sprints, the piecing together the different times is what really is helpful. So I know what tasks take 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, and I can kind of slot those in. So I think managing time and balancing them. The family's always going to be the priority. I mean, tomorrow it's an early dismissal in Southington, so that means I'm pretty much working a half day. So I'm okay with that, and I'll figure out a way to make that work and do different things. And, we're in the content world now. So a lot of times I'm mowing the lawn and listening to podcasts, or I'm, doing something and pulling in content that way. So, if you just kind of cobble it together and figure it out, I mean, that's the one good thing that, the way we are now is so many people can work remotely and work whenever, wherever, which is good, but it can also eat you up if you're not paying attention to it. So, I think it's a struggle for everybody to kind of figure that out, but we'll get through it.
So can you tell me, what would, if you had to give a piece of advice to a new entrepreneur about how to balance family life and business life, what would that be?
How to balance the both of them. I would just say, make sure you've got complete buy-in from your family before you really get going. Make sure you kind of have a roadmap of, say, hey, listen, this is what it looks like. This is, it might be 5 years before we get to where we need to be. This is the time it's going to take, not just from a year standpoint, but, day to day, week to week, here's what it's going to look like, and, provide updates, make sure it's kind of a family affair. I'd say that's the main thing. Make sure everybody's on the same page. You don't want to get a year into your business and then have a spouse say, well, I didn't know it was going to take this long to make any money, or I didn't realize it was going to do this. Make sure they're sharing and buying in on the process. I think that's, if you do have a spouse or significant other, I mean, a lot of times they have talents that can help your business too. I mean, I'm lucky that I have a teacher as a wife. So yesterday I was posting, or maybe Saturday, posting something on LinkedIn. So I just grabbed her. I said, can you read this real quick? Does this make sense to like a normal human being? And, she read it and she, oh yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. To make sure I'm not overcomplicating things or using some whacked out terminology that nobody uses.
Did she correct your grammar?
No, this one was actually okay. I'm getting better at speaking at communicating, I guess, at a little bit lower level, especially on social media, because you want to try to sound so professional and use all the big words and stuff, and you realize that doesn't work. You're better off just doing short, sweet, and
the KISS method.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you want to. I mean, you do the website analysis and stuff, and they say it should be at like a 3rd to 5th grade level, basically on the websites. Like, you want to make it as simple and say what you need to say in a few words as possible. You want people to reach out to you, and then at that point during the meeting when you meet them, but you don't need to give your whole life story on your website or on your social media or every post, So
yeah, no, I totally agree with you. It's just like you get to a point where their eyes start glazing over, and then you have lost them by that point. And then, but the call to action so far down to the bottom, call to action is like a number or something. In that, once they get to that point, they're just like, ugh, all right, enough, enough.
Yeah, enough to pique their interest. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. We have a big discussion in our industry, like, should you put your fees on your website or not? Should you do this? Should you do that? And some people have success by, being super transparent, say, here's what it costs. Others say, no, I don't do that because I want to have a discussion with them first and whatever. So, there is a lot of nuance to it. But whatever you're doing, as long as you go all in on it, I think, and do a lot of it, you'll be successful.
So, where we had explored the beginning, we had explored the middle, we have talked about your challenges. Now I want to ask you, who has been your biggest influence or mentor in this journey?
Oh boy, that's a really good question. I can't say you, right? No, that would be too.
I don't think I'd be justified, because you're so much smarter than I am when it comes to this stuff. And honestly, I think I'd still send you questions and stuff about this stuff, and they're like, hey, what do you think? And you've been very, very nice to just jump in and be very, very helpful, and I appreciate that.
Yeah,
so tell me, like, what is it doesn't have to be a mentor, it could be an influence, could be something.
Yeah, I mean, it really is just a combination of a lot of people. I mean, obviously, my father, he ran his own business, and I think his ability to recognize character and recognize, relationships early on, I think was a really helpful thing for me, and something that I've kind of passed on, because you know how it is sometimes when you'll meet somebody, and maybe they'll become a client if you push them a little bit, or maybe even they're kind of pushing you to become a client, but something doesn't quite feel right and whatever. Yep. So you gotta just kind of walk away and just say, hey, listen, this isn't going to be a good fit or whatever. And my dad was really good at that. So certainly from that standpoint, and doing things the right way. I mean, there's a million things I could have done early on to get more short-term success and more short-term revenue, but I always would have kind of been on that hamster wheel, kind of always chasing that. Whereas it build slow, build strong has kind of been my idea. Sometimes felt a little bit too slow, but so I think anybody who's from that world of I appreciate the idea of like the kind of go and, do all that stuff and 100 miles an hour and, run with scissors and all those type of phrases too. But there is something to be said for doing things the right way and treating people the right way. And, there's you've probably seen this in your world too. You see it in financial services. Sometimes people say, well, if you doubled your fee tomorrow, would you lose half your clients? No. So why don't you double your fee and your revenue will go up? Yeah, technically the math works on that. And I know that I could double my fee tomorrow and probably wouldn't maybe lose 10% of my clients, but it wouldn't feel like the right thing to do. It's not why these people, signed up with me. It's not why they're working with me. So, so anybody who comes from that world and I have a lot of peers who I bounce ideas off of each other. One of the big thing that's happened in our industry is there's so many solo advisors. The technology and everything has made it a lot easier to
It
start.
really has. It's
Yeah,
something that's so intense. It's transformative.
yeah, it really is. I mean, 10 years ago, if I started this business, I would have paid 20 grand for a server and I would have had to pay all this off the shelf software and all this kind of stuff. It really would have been kind of cost prohibitive. And not to mention, certain office space and things like that. I mean, at this point, clients don't really care. And, everything is kind of software as a service. Everything's, you kind of paying monthly and everything. So there's a lot more independent advisors, a lot more solo practitioners. So a lot of them, even though they're not really mentors or heroes or whatever, there's a pretty good network I have of those folks where I can kind of bounce ideas and we keep each other in check. You're like, oh yeah, you can't really do that. Or that doesn't sound right. That doesn't feel right. So, I guess
When you say that, you mean like from a regulatory standpoint or a moral standpoint?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I mean, there's certain things, in our industry that you could do that, would be, I don't want to get too technical or whatever, but like, kind of chasing revenue or billing people on certain things. That's like, nah, you really just should kind of do that as part of your service. Yeah, they would probably pay you for it if you told them, charge them extra for this, but it's not really the right thing to do. So from that standpoint, but yeah, I mean, I guess your original question was about mentors and stuff. I'd have to start with my father, most certainly. The idea of, building slow, treating people the right way, doing the right thing, and kind of not chasing that big relationship or that big, sale, so to speak, that might not feel quite right.
So how do you handle, because it sounds like there's trying to balance that probably is adding stress to your life. And how do you handle the stress and the pressure that comes with running your own business?
Oh, I put a lot of fists through walls, Glenn. I get all fired up. No, not so much anymore. I mean, a lot of things that even bothered me, even 5 years ago when I started, don't so much bother me anymore. I think it is stressful, especially in the social media world. You see things online that you want to correct people, or as we talked about earlier, some of the people on LinkedIn and TikTok that are just spreading misinformation. It's like you want to go into the comments and it's like you just got to kind of let it go. And you remember that all of your energy that you waste on those external factors is less energy you have to spend with your family and less energy you have on your clients, So for every, comment that you make or every world issue that you're trying to fix, there's some client of yours who's getting underserviced by that. And you have to kind of keep that in mind. It's like, all right, instead of leaving this comment somewhere or trying to fix this external thing that really doesn't have anything to do with your business, go email a client, go pick up the phone, go do something for your existing clients or go find a new client, so trying to just turn on the blinders and keep all of those sort of stressing things. And I'm pretty bad about creating my own stress too. Like sometimes I'll see the phone ring and it'll be a client and I'll just assume the worst for whatever. Like, oh my God, they're so mad that, their account was down 3% this quarter or something like that. And usually they're just like, hey, I just wanted to see how you're doing and how's everything, and
that feels good. I get that too. Sometimes I see the calls come in. I'm like, did I miss something? Did I forget to do something? And then they're like, hey man, how's things going? Just want to let you know. And you're like, oh.
Yeah, I know. So I got to get out of my own head sometimes, like a lot of other people. But yeah, once you've been through that a few times, and you like, listen, if the absolute worst thing that would happen was this client leaved and not that be a big deal. I don't have any one client who's so big that they would like, devastate my practice or something if they left. I love them all. I don't want anybody to leave, but if the absolute worst that could happen would be they left, it's like that wouldn't even, so once you've been through a few of these things, I think the stress does sort of calm down a little bit. So
awesome. So we're going to come to the end of the interview, and I really do appreciate you taking the time out today. What I want to do at the end of every interview, I want to do what's called a 15-second spotlight. So that's going to give you 15 seconds to just whatever you would like to say. You want to talk about your business, how you can help. Timer is on. Let's go.
All right. So for small businesses, keep in mind that especially if you're in Connecticut or one of the other states, you have a retirement plan mandate, so you got to get something in order. Don't think of it as a negative or a big time suck, because it's not that big a deal. We can get you up and running and connect to payroll and educate your employees. And in the long run, it's going to be good for your business. And there's tax credits that are going to pay for it anyway, usually for the first at least 3 years. So keep that in mind. Don't just go with like a state plan or something that's kind of a lower quality. Take your time and do it right, because especially as a business owner, remember, you're going to be a participant in that plan as well. So, and then for individuals, don't think that financial planning or investment advice is something that you don't have enough money for, or it's way out of your reach, or that you're, don't meet the minimums of a firm. Just, reach out and have that question and answer session with me or another advisor, and try to get the help that you need, and find somebody who is a good fit. Even, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, whatever, they all have a ton of coaches. So there's no reason that, even the regular individual shouldn't reach out for professional help in whatever they want to do. So just don't hold back, ask the question, whether it's me or somebody else, and get going.
Awesome. Brian, you are the man. Thank you so much for joining me today on Main Street Insights. Main Street Insights is the podcast for small businesses. You not only are a small business, but you also help small businesses. And again, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll talk soon.
Thank you. All right.
So I hope you enjoyed the interview. That's going to do it for us today. We're going to post up every Thursday. So hit that subscribe, hit the follow, or whatever it is that's going on. Oh, the subscribe and like. Yeah, but this will be on Facebook too. So hit that follow button too. Let's get this going. Let's get all of our small businesses together. Let's support each other. Let's bring each other up. The more we like the content that we each produce, the better the algorithm's going to serve us, the better the customers are going to find, the right customers are going to find the businesses. And again, thanks for watching. We will see you next Thursday.